Kamut could already see through the words said by Raynell, and he decided to express his feelings to her. He leaned into her and held her close, insisting that it had been a long time since the direction had been set. According to him, even looking at her is beautiful, and it is beautiful no matter what she does in the first place. Despite the feeling of hiding her from everyone else, he feels like he cannot stand without showing her to everyone to express that she is his. But the whole subject of the first prince of Wulfric trusting people becomes rather blurry to Raynell, and he has been unable to trust someone else other than himself for obvious reasons. Even his own master tried to finish him off, changing a big part of his heart in childhood, making him feel like nobody wanted to have him beside them. Now Kamut explains that it was rather different from the moment he met her in that forest, as if his fate started to move, and he no longer felt like sitting alone. The sole reason why Raynell is rather precious to him, even though the beginning of it was a little different than what it is currently since she only looked like a crow at that time. The whole thing changed in Kamut when he realized that she could transform into a human being, and he insisted that he was not about to force her to feel the same about him. The tension between them starts to rise, and she can't stand it without knowing, which makes her almost express her feelings to him. Even though she knows what she has to say, she feels like the rejection will only turn into a bad picture for Kamut, so she allows him to do whatever he wants. As soon as she accepts it, Kamut kisses her cheeks while promising that he will work as hard as possible, hoping that they both can rest assured. Then after 2 weeks, the Emperor of the Empire decided to leave the world looking a little tired while remembering the same woman once he loved in his life. Instead of crying over his father's death, Kamut only hugged Raynell the whole time and stayed like that. Soon enough, he became rather busy with all the paperwork since he would have to think about a lot of things as the next emperor as a means of stabilization. The wizard comes in saying that they have to deal with the remnants of Llewellyn, as even after unlocking all the guild members, they couldn't find any traces, as if it has been evaporated in thin air. The whole time Raynell kept on sitting near the windows, not being able to see Kamut for a long time, and she knew that there was too much to handle for Kamut, even with his people. While she is busy hoping that his work will finish soon, Kamut's little sister comes in banging on the door, calling her brother a liar for some unknown reason. The little girl comes in complaining about her brother not being inside the room, and it seems that he didn't keep his word to meet her. While the girl is constantly jumping up and down while blaming it all on her brother, she reminisces the words of her nanny. Not only she is the younger sister of Carmute, but she is actually the youngest princess of the Balfric house. At the time of the deaths of the second prince and the empress, they had to whisk the youngest daughter Sapphire to a faraway place to keep her hidden and protected. For ages, she had to grow up alone and far away from her family, only to grow up in the arms of her nanny only led her to become incredibly attached to Carmute, who would visit her every now and then. Now, after the death of the emperor, Sapphire is finally in the palace to live in here, and she comes in to find her brother every single day. While she sits on the ground hoping that she will finally get to meet her brother by waiting around, Raynell continues to admire the beauty of the little girl as she closes her eyes. Just when everything was going well, Sapphire noticed Raynell sitting near the windows and began complaining about it, calling her a bird of death. She immediately opened the windows and started flying her away from the palace. As she begins to say something to the girl gets angrier and starts calling her out to leave the palace as soon as possible. Knowing that the transformation would lead to even more serious accusations, she thinks of hiding for the time being, which is the best available solution at hand. Seeing that the bird is hidden behind the wardrobe, Sapphire takes out a chair to climb above and continues to insist that she has to leave no matter what. Just when everything is about to go horribly wrong, Carmute comes in to see what is actually happening inside his bedroom in his absence, only to see that his little sister is trying to climb the wardrobe using a chair. In excitement, the girl tries to move, but is about to fall down, only to be saved by Raynell and her swift wings. Even after understanding that Raynell is the one who has saved her, she doesn't seem to be interested in thanking her at all, assuming that she is a bird of death in the first place. But when Carmute begins to explain how he could have been dead without her, Sapphire starts to look a little bit differently at the bird with kind and understanding eyes. When Carmute starts to push once again to say thank you to Raynell, Sapphire finally thanks her for saving her and her brother's life. Then she insists that Raynell shouldn't be taking away her big brother, adding that she has heard bad things about black birds, which made her rather suspicious. Sapphire starts crying, almost unbearably, remembering the deaths of her family members one by one, leaving her all alone. Not knowing if she will be able to help the situation, Raynell uses her butterfly magic to astonish the little one while Carmute explains how it works in the first place. After being explained by her brother, Sapphire realizes that her big brother is not at risk, as Raynell will never try to take him away. When Sapphire finally leaves, Carmute apologizes to Raynell and notices that her hair has been messed up by Sapphire while she is smothering her with love. Then, after thinking for quite a while, Raynell asks Carmute if she can ask for a favor from him, as if she is in need of something. Carmute claims that he will gladly grant her request if she asks for anything, and Raynell feels like the prince was not being dishonest about the way of seduction in the first place. Raynell only asks if she can play with Sepia sometimes, and Carmute begins to wonder if she is serious at this point, but it seems that she is really asking for that. Raynell explains how she likes the little children to have fun and live their lives, and according to her, she cannot stand someone living like they are the loneliest being ever. The only thing she desires is that the child will be a little bit happier while acting as her protector at the same time, which is her only personal desire in the first place. After seeing this kind of dedication, Carmute couldn't say no to her and claimed that she was allowed to take good care of the child. Soon enough, he holds on to her, saying that she might have to care for him at the same time, which makes Raynell blush rather hard, as she didn't expect this kind of reaction out of him. Even though everything is going so smoothly, Raynell feels like it is only about to be tough standing it, and this whole time Carmute thinks of the difference between them once again. At this time, he thinks it might be better for him to approach her in the form of an animal while remembering how the last time went. Later, Wilhelm comes into the chamber of Carmute with a matter to ask him for a review, as it is rather important, and he is allowed inside. The old man immediately looks at the crow once again to remind himself of the past incident, and he feels some kind of an eerie vibe from the bird, no matter how many times he looks at it. When Carmute realizes that the guy is staring at the bird the whole time, he asks him to report what he wanted to say in the first place, which shakes the man rather terribly. He places a huge pile of paperwork ahead of Carmute and elaborates that this whole thing is a list of candidates for the next empress who is interested in marrying him. But Carmute insists that a wolf's companion cannot be decided that way, at least that is what Carmute thinks, and opposes the idea of marriage. Even the old man knows that it cannot be decided like that, since he has looked after Carmute's father the whole time. The old man still wants Carmute to take a look at the current state of the empire, no matter what, assuming that there are too many twists, and they are not able to ignore them anymore. Even though the old man insists that the throne shouldn't be empty, Carmute assumes that the whole situation is rather useless to think of right now. There are still some things to talk about. For example, people like the Princess Sepia or the Marquis in the tree are still a concern for all of them at this moment. The old man thinks that to prevent and protect those who are disrespectful to them from adhering to them, Carmute will have to take a vow of marriage as soon as possible, no matter what. At this point, Carmute realizes that there is no other way, so he asks the old man if there is someone more special than anyone else at this point, which makes Raynell think. The old man only claims that if someone else has such perfect conditions to fit in for the time being, he can surely bring them along, as he will be glad to take a look. The only thing going on inside Carmute's mind is that he will be able to do everything to put her in the position of the Empress. While Carmute and Raynell are both alone on the balcony in the afternoon, he asks if she will be able to do something for him if he asks her without any exceptions. Instead of rolling around the conversation, Raynell realizes that he wants her to become the next Empress, and he could guess that she easily understood the issue from the conversation with the butler. Knowing that a wolf is never able to change their companion, Carmute feels like it will be his worst nightmare if he has to marry someone else, which he cannot think of allowing to happen in the first place, as it might be better to obey Llewellyn. Despite the mockery of Raynell for the time being, Carmute asks her to become serious so she can imagine if someone else standing near him looks cool to her or not. Even so, Raynell feels like she is not that sure about this whole situation. Besides, she is still unable to answer his questions that easily right now. When Carmute feels like he will be okay with the rejection, Raynell claims that he cannot stand waiting forever to marry someone like her. After going through the thoughts of how it should happen, Carmute believes that with her help, he might be able to buy some time, which is the only path that is open to him for the time being. Everyone is excited to be in the Emperor's inauguration, and the whole situation feels rather heavy on the guests as they continue to see how the Republic members are crying their eyes out to make the whole situation look rather heavy. While some might try to represent the whole situation with laughter, it doesn't get much better for the guy who has been busy crying. Suddenly, Sapphire begins to haggle, holding her nanny's red dress as soon as she notices that the priests are pouring into the place and the trumpets are being blown by the musicians. Just as the priests enter, they start reminiscing about the vow of the Wolf of the Divine, since Carmute is about to become the 25th Emperor of the Empire to gain the throne's eligibility. Carmute then walks in and accepts his staff and other accessories from the priests, and he decides to present the most precious existence to him, the one and only who saved his life. Suddenly, the Bird of Death appears out of nowhere in the air in front of the audience, and it seems that the whole thing has been planned by Carmute and Raynell beforehand. This is the moment when Sapphire starts training herself to become the next Empress, and Carmute really makes the vow to choose her or no one else on that day. This whole time, Raynell hopes that the real heroine appears at the perfect time, and since this is the moment when the real heroine appears, Raynell waits for her patiently. While she is thinking too hard about everything else around the consequences of the game, Carmute realizes that she is rather distracted and asks her to be patient. But Raynell promises that she will continue to stand by him until this whole thing has calmed down. Soon enough, the servants continue to carry the items for the Emperor for his new room, and they think that the room will look better than ever. On the other hand, Merdin and Namiel had to leave knowing that they had to study, while Wilhelm was being questioned by everyone for the next Empress's identity being a crow. Suddenly, the little one rushes inside the room, and she feels like Raynell and Carmute decided not to reveal anything in front of her almost intentionally. She calls them both liars this time, and there seems to be no end of it at all.